Welcome to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.
3, 2, 1. Hi, everyone. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Brecheen, and we've got a great guest today. One of my favorite coaches, actually, growing up and watching college football over the years, and obviously one of the greatest coaching families ever in the United States. But Terry Bowden, the new football coach at ULM in Monroe. Coach, thanks for joining us this morning.
I appreciate it. I feel like I'm back up in Northeast Ohio. It's so cold up here this morning when we had frost on the field while we were working out. But I am glad to be here, and I'm glad to be at Monroe.
Terry, tell everybody, Coach, about how this happened, because I know there's a lot of people excited for ULM. Yes. All the way from Bubby Brister that played at quarterback for ULM, and Stan Humphreys and all the great players that have come out of the program, Steve Foley. But how did this come about with you becoming the coach with ULM in Monroe?
Well, I mean, it was kind of just a unique process. I mean, I think 5 years ago, in 2015, we'd had a good year at Akron, really the best year they'd ever had as a Division I team, and Monroe was looking for a coach, and they flew some people up there. They started talking to me, and got me excited about the program, the history of the success they'd had in the past with the Stan Humphreys, these other guys. But we couldn't work out the finances of the thing. It wasn't just me they had to bring in. I had to bring my whole staff, and that was a salary level that was a certain level. And so it just didn't work out. And I said, thank you. And I had a good year there, so it didn't work out. And then 5 years later now, when they came back to me, I knew a lot about the program, and I knew about what they were trying to do. And so and I was at Clemson as an analyst. I was no longer at Akron. I didn't have a full staff with me. And so when they came calling it at Clemson, it was, I sat there and said, what a great place for me to be, because I've spent a lot of time in, 5 previous football programs that I've taken over. 4 of them were losing. Even Auburn was two losing seasons before I went to Auburn. And so, we were able to turn them around. So the more I talked, the more they talked to me. It seemed like a perfect place for me to not so much finish up and hang on, but to have a great finish to my career at a program I think we can take to a championship level, a conference championship level. And so it just kind of all fell into place. And they said, "Do you want to come?" I said, "Yeah," and that's how we got this marriage started. And I've been excited ever since. It's a beautiful place. I love small southern towns of football, college football, Clemson. Auburn, those type of towns that I've coached in. So it just fell into place, and then I was able to put an outstanding staff together.
And, Coach, speaking of your staff, your brother Tommy Bowden had a lot of success at Tulane, and he had a coach by the name of Coach Rodriguez that you just hired. And he's a genius, man. And, look, people are like, wow, what a hire getting Coach Rodriguez to join you.
Well, I mean, you're right. That's the second time Bowden has brought him to Louisiana to coach. But, back then, Rich was young. We knew Rich when he was young. He worked, when I was at Salem College, I was a 26-year-old head coach. I left. He came in the next time. He came in right behind me out of West Virginia. We both went to West Virginia. And then when he would work our Bowden quarterback camps for years, him and Jimbo Fisher would work our camps. And so Rich went to work for Tommy, and Jimbo was with me as a football player and a coach for 14 years. And so the relationship with our family continued as Rich went to Tulane, then to Clemson, then took over head coaching jobs himself. And so when his son jumped in the podcast, his son's a quarterback from Arizona who started some games and played a lot of football.
Okay.
His son was in the podcast looking for a couple more years to play as a graduate student. So I called Rich. I said, "Rich, is your son interested maybe in ULM?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, does he have an offensive coordinator he can bring with him?" And that's kind of how it got started. He said, "You know what? I don't know." But I kind of convinced him, like Tommy and I and my brother Jeff did when we played for our father. And I didn't play a lot, but we played at West Virginia. I convinced him, say, "Hey, you're going to be a coach again. You've been a great head coach. You're going to be a great head coach again. But for the next 2 years, how about coaching your son?" And that, I think that struck a chord with him. And so he jumped in, we talked, and now that frees me up not to be a play calling head coach, but I'm a recruiting coordinator and fundraiser. That's my job right now. And offensively, I've turned that over to Rich Rodriguez.
Yeah, I'll be talking to you when the show's over about recruiting. And I know we can't talk about recruits during this show.
Right.
But Coach, we're going to take a quick break. Hang on. When we come back, I want to ask you your vision for the program when you got hired, and all the vision that you have for the program to get ULM back on track.
That'll include that recruiting you talked about, but I'll look forward to it. We'll jump right back.
We'll be right back. Listen, whatever you're driving right now, Tommy Harvey wants it. Bring it in to Harvey Subaru, Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City, or John Harvey Toyota. They're paying big bucks for all trades right now. They'll cut you a check right there. Tell them Lee sent you. Welcome back. You listen to Sports Scouting Report. Our guest today is a new head coach at ULM of Monroe, Terry Bowden. Coach Bowden, you know, the vision for this program. I know at Auburn you had a lot of success. I mean, you had 11-0 undefeated season. You had some 10-win seasons. Akron, you had a lot of success. I mean, North Alabama, you had a lot of – I mean, wherever you've been, you've done really great. What is the vision for ULM? Because they've had success at times.
Right.
And
there's two or four different ways of attacking that. I mean, first of all, you've got to change the culture. I mean, you've got to change the culture of the losing to the winning part. Now, and ULM's had some great success. Probably one of the greatest upsets of all time was ULM beating Alabama, and so Coach Saban's first year, I believe, and so we've had success. The national champion in '87, Stan Humphries in that game. But we've got to get around where people believe they're going to win, not lose. And I brought a lot of coaches in that have had a lot of success, and so all they think about is what we've done to win. And so I think that's the culture that you want to just create that atmosphere as much as possible. You can't finish until you win a game, but that's where it starts. But then you got to get football players. You got to get football players. Yeah. When we watched the championship game the other night, we saw millions of dollars worth of coaches on one sideline. We saw millions of dollars worth of coaches on the other sideline. And that number 6 from Louisiana he was more important than all of them.
Right,
he was more everything. You win with Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's. And so we've got to do a great job of identifying the great high school players in this state, East Texas, maybe over towards and Mississippi, and get the best players there. But there is a factor this year that's a little different, and a lot of us coaches are aware of it. The portal situation is unique, where every single player last year got a free year, got an extra year.
Yeah.
Where they didn't have to, they could play 11 games, and there's a lot of guys coming back that would not have normally come back, and yet these schools are signing their 25 freshmen. So there are going to be an amazing, large number of kids in the portal starting now, all the way till the end of spring, because they're going to go through spring ball. And some of those guys that are seniors that hung on one more year get beat out by freshmen. They get beat out by young recruits. They're going to look for a portal and a place to play their last year. So this recruiting thing at ULM will not end now. It won't end probably till the very end of summer as we continue to look at this portal situation where players can transfer and if any eligibility and play right away.
Coach, I was on the phone with the coaches at Western Kentucky yesterday. I was talking to coaches at Lamar, at Central Florida, and they all said what you just said. They said this thing's going to go all the way to late August, like you said.
There's no question. The worst thing you can do right now is be impatient. The worst thing you can do is be impatient. If you're not at the Power 5 LSU level, you've got to be patient, because I want guys that don't want to come here. I want guys that want to go to LSU. I want guys that want to go to Texas A&M. I want guys that want to go to Auburn. Now, and I want to be there for them to cry on my shoulder when they don't get that opportunity. Or if they already got that opportunity, and because these teams are getting great NFL caliber players, they can't quite get the playing time. That's the good thing about the portal. I was studying football. I think last year when we played LSU and when I was at Clemson, lost to LSU, 3 of the top 4 quarterbacks were transfers.
Right.
I mean, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and LSU were all transfer quarterbacks. So the portal has an important role to play, and it's not just about getting a guy that's had a lot of trouble or was in trouble or things. These are guys that go to a school because they want to play, and then the same schools get the same great players. I mean, if you're at LSU, and you get a great quarterback every year. Well, after a year or two, somebody's not going to play,
right.
And so that if the same schools get the same great players, and those players are doing the best they can, and they're still not quite the top guy, they want to go somewhere where they can be the top guy. And so that creates that portal situation that we're going to jump into. We signed 13 high school seniors in December. And maybe we take these last 12 and we hold on, get a couple next week in the signing date, then wait through the summer to get the very best players available.
And, Coach, what's crazy? If history repeats itself with the transfer portal, Stan Humphries came from LSU.
Well, you're exactly right. We've already got Red Rodriguez from Arizona, but the great one's still out there. You're exactly right. This will be an interesting thing. I think talk radio is going to have a blast this summer coming up because it's going to be all kind of movement all the way, especially when spring ball ends.
Yeah,
spring ball ends, and even junior colleges that have decided to play in the spring. I mean, you'll be recruiting those guys all the way through.
Coach, we're going to take a quick break. Come right back, and I want to ask you about. Speaking of programs that have turned around like Cincinnati, and look at Deion Sanders, what he's doing, bringing kids to Jackson State that are all Americans, so away from Georgia University and other schools. So the trend is changing immediate, like you said, with the transfer portal. We'll be right back with more with Coach Terry Bowden of ULM of Monroe. We'll be right back. Looking for a used car? Harvey Autos has 3 dealerships, which means 3 times the used vehicles. They've got everything from fuel-efficient compacts to luxury models, even hybrids, and certified pre-owned with a warranty. Check out John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, or Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. Our guest today is Coach Terry Bowden. Coach, you're very familiar with Louisiana over the years, not only your brother Tommy being at Tulane as the head coach, but your dad – he spoke at a lot of local high schools. You might not know I knew this, but Ouachita Christian, I think, had your dad speak there many years in Monroe.
Yeah, I think my dad and my brother Tommy and I've all spoken either for Fellowship of Christian Athletes or for other functions that we've spoken around the country. So, we've been in this state quite a bit. Then, of course, I don't care where you coach. Yeah, everybody recruits at least below I-10. Everybody's down in that area from every other school. Now, I think what is a new area for a lot of us in a serious way is North Central Louisiana and the great schools that play football up here from Monroe to Shreveport and all those. I think a lot of us are going to be we're going to visit those and bring those into the big recruiting area. But Louisiana, I've always said if when I was talking Power 5 football, if LSU can draw a fence around this state and get the best players, they'll play for the championship every year. Now, we want to get we can add all those areas to this because you can say a lot about that for Houston and Dallas and even over into Memphis and the areas, the schools, all the towns that are within 5 hours of ULM. But Louisiana is a great state. The biggest thing I've noticed, because being the head coach at Akron and now being the head coach of ULM, is the passion for college football. In Akron, you're 30 minutes away from Cleveland. You got the Browns, you got the Cavaliers, you got the Indians, you got the NFL Hall of Fame. You got everything going on along with college football. But I do believe Louisiana, just like Mississippi and Alabama, college football's king. When you're a kid in the South like I was growing up, the greatest honor is to coach on Saturdays. If you're a kid in Northeast Ohio and the greatest honor is to coach on Sundays, the Browns, the Steelers, the Lions, that's what you think about as much as anything. So there's a passion for college football in Monroe that doesn't exist in a town like Akron for college football. And these people are hungry. They're hungry to have a winner here, and they don't understand why we can't have one. And so I just think if we'll do the right things, and the other schools are doing the same thing, whether it's La Tech or Lafayette, these other schools, they're understanding the same thing. There is a great love of football in this area, and that's what we've got to have, and I think we do have in Monroe.
And, Coach, speaking of programs that people said it could never happen, and it gives so much hope for the people in Monroe, but look at Coastal Carolina this year, how great they were. Look at ULL and Lafayette beating one of the best teams in the country in Iowa State that finished in the top 20. And look at Cincinnati 10 years ago. Nobody thought Cincinnati would be a great program. So, and you did a great job at a lot of small programs like North Alabama and Akron, but you can turn this around overnight. Like I said, the culture, changing the culture of the program.
Well, I mean, as I said, we're not inventing a new mousetrap here. We're not having to show people what hasn't been done before. There are certain principles you got to apply. Al Davis, the former great from the Oakland Raiders, would say, you get a good staff, then you get good players, then you get a good plan, and then just win, baby, win. So I think you got to do all those things, and then the winner will come. People ask me how long is it going to take to win. It's going to take about 60 minutes. That's all it's going to take is 60 minutes, but it's going to take 60 minutes of putting 60 days or 6 years of work together as a team and as a group to put that together. And then you go out there and put it all together on Saturday. So, we open up with Kentucky and LSU. Well, Kentucky, which is that's the team. LSU's on down the road. But we've got and you mentioned Deion Sanders. He played for my dad at Florida State. That's going to be interesting to get a Bowden coach to. Hey, Bobby coached both of us. I don't. I was the best. I was the best guy on the scout team. He was the best guy in the country. What's the difference? So.
And speaking of that, you lettered at West Virginia for your dad. West Virginia.
Yeah, I was a tailback. Every time I went on the field, he told me to get my tailback on the bench. No, he actually left after my sophomore year to go to Florida State. I played for another coach, and I was one of those guys that lettered on the special teams. I lettered on kickoff return, on punt return. But you know something, and you go check everybody's staff out. Most of the great coaches in the country were us walk-ons. We're us guys who had to fight every day just to have a chance. We learned a good work ethic, and we learned to be grinders. And so I try to hire grinders. Now, I'm not saying a great pro guy cannot be a great coach, because they can. But when you got a whole bunch of money in the bank and you ain't got to pay the bills, and you're not used to spending 10 or 12 hours in the office every day, you can't be a good football coach. So I appreciate those guys that worked on my scout teams and worked in the backup, and those guys that set the bench, because a lot of those guys make the very best coaches.
And your dad, I remember as a kid growing up myself, Coach, when your dad took his team to Tiger Stadium in 1979 and played Charlie McClendon. And your dad was not a solid name at that point on the big stage, but he took that Florida State program from zero to where it is today. I mean, that program was not really doing well before your dad took the job.
Yeah, when he took the program over in '76, they were about ready to drop football. They had like 3 wins in 3 years, from 0-11 to 1-10 to 2-9 back then, and so he took it over. But 3 years later at Florida State, 1979, my brother Tommy was a graduate assistant. I was a graduate assistant, and my brother Jeff was a walk-on player. We went to Baton Rouge. My dad was 5-0. A lot of people don't realize this, but he had already talked. I think Paul Dietzel might have been the head coach, the AD. I'm not sure who it was. But they came to my father sometime during that early season and said, McClendon's retiring. We'd like you to be our coach. Huh. And I remember my dad telling our family, if we went and lose this game, I'm going to LSU. If we can't beat them at our best, I need to go play where we can. If I win, maybe we ought to just stay here and build this program. So in '79, we went undefeated, and the big win was we beat LSU in Baton Rouge. He decided to stay at Florida State, and I don't know that LSU or Florida State has been suffering from it. It was a great move for Florida State. LSU's won 2 national championships since then. So that's part of a coach's life. But 1979 in Baton Rouge was a big day in the Bowden. Baton Rouge was a big day in the Bowden family, because it kind of destined to where we would all go.
Coach, another thing, I know all our fans in Louisiana are big fans of your dad. How's your dad doing at a young 91 years old?
My mom's 88. He's 91. They just had their 71st wedding anniversary.
Wow.
But you know what's great is that, I say it's great. It was very nervous. In September, he got the COVID-19, the virus, but he got it in the hospital. He went to the hospital for a leg infection. He was doing pretty good. He had a little leg infection from removing the sunspots at that age, and it got infected. So they kept him in there a couple of days, and they kept him a couple of days to rehab in their rehab unit, and he got COVID at the hospital. He got it from some nurse or somebody in the hospital, and so they put him in ICU for over 2 weeks. And during that time, he wasn't eating well. He had some of his older injuries, his diabetes and things kind of along. Anyway, he couldn't get out of there. So finally he said, take me home. But I want to be with my wife. I want to be with my kids.
Yeah.
And so he came out, and then I got a call from my brother that he wasn't doing real well. So we all kind of drove or flew back into Tallahassee in September, thought we might not have him any longer. And he didn't look good. But son of a gun, he starts eating, and he starts smiling, and he starts talking. And then today he looks as good as he ever did. In fact, for our press conference a week and a half ago in Monroe, he and my mother flew in. They were at the press conference, and he was his old self again. And he's got a ULM hat on. That's the only game in town right now for the Bowden family, ULM. And so it all goes well, and God willing, he and my mom will be in the stands for that first game that we have at home.
Coach,
and I think that'll be against Jackson State with his player, Deion Sanders.
Wow, that's going to be crazy. You talk about
that'll be crazy
exposure, man. That's going to be great.
Yeah.
Coach, one more break we're going to take. When we come back, I want you to be able to brag on any of the coaches you've hired on your staff, talk about some of your other coaches, and then we'll wrap up having you on talking about ULM of Monroe, a great coach. Terry, I'm glad they hired you. I'm excited for you here in Louisiana. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with more Terry Bowden. So, hey, guys, just wanted to take a minute to tell you about Harvey Autos. If you need a new or used car, there's 3 great dealerships right here worth checking out. John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, and Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Low prices, honest people. Tell them Lee sent you. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report. I'm your host, Lee Brecheen. Today's guest is newly hired head football coach of ULM of Monroe, Terry Bowden. Coach Bowden, we talked about Coach Rodriguez coming over, all his success at Michigan and Arizona and, when he was at Tulane with your brother. But talk about some of your other assistants that you brought in and your relationship with these guys coming to Monroe, Louisiana.
Well, it's interesting how you put a staff together, and I think putting a staff together is critical for a head coach. And you don't learn that as a graduate assistant. You don't learn that in any classroom. You learn it from probably trial and error, making mistakes and hiring the right guys. But too many times, of course, this is my 25th year as a head coach, and my 6th staff I've hired. And growing up, I watched my dad hire tons of coaches over the many years he's been a head coach. But if a coach, let me just say, if a coach is firing his coordinators after 1 year, you probably hired the wrong coach because he hired those guys.
Right.
So you need to know what you're doing. And many coaches, they get fired before they learn how to staff. And so that's a dynamic that's very important. I really felt like I needed to get some youth, some young guys that would been around nothing but winning. The great thing at Clemson was I was there 2 years as an analyst. And Clemson, again, like Texas A&M, where my Jimbo Fisher, my old player is, or LSU, they attract the brightest, smartest young coaches, GAs, analysts, because they're the kind of programs that can afford them and the kind of programs that attract them.
Yeah.
And so I knew at Clemson I could find young guys that were way more better than they were costly. There were guys that were going to be too much expensive for me down the road. So I got a young defensive coordinator, Zach Alley, who's been 8 years under Venables, listening and watching and putting in that defense. So he's 26 years old. He was a student coach when I was there 8 years. At 26, he was the youngest coordinator in the country when I hired him. But he's a great dynamic coach that understands the Clemson defense that I wanted. And then I added Ron West. Ron West is now just the opposite. He's closer to my age. And Ron was with Tommy coming into Tulane. He was with Tommy going to Clemson. And he was a defensive coordinator at I want to say Lafayette. He was there for 7 years as a defensive coordinator. So he had the background in Louisiana plus the experience. So I've got all those guys blended together with some other guys. Mostly I was working for youthful coaches that had a lot of success in their past and just enough veterans around them to give them that maturity that you have to be calm in difficult situations, to know how to react, not just after a game or after the season, but after a series. They can make on-the-field adjustments immediately from the history of their background. So you want a good mix of that. So yeah, I'm excited. It's a staff that I think has got a good blend of young and old, and they're all really, really excited to be here.
And, Coach, one final thing, because every coach is different when it comes to recruiting philosophies. But, the old school guys like myself, my dad was a coach. I've been scouting and doing it for 32 years, and I love to watch the kids play in person or film, full game film. And, and then there's a part of this business where people like to go to camps or go off what the kid did in camp or his 40 time. But are you still more of that old school coach? You like to watch the film and evaluate based on being in full pads?
I think all of it's important. I mean, you don't get excited about a guy you see him on Huddle or on video on a sporting service. That's where it starts. There's got to be something that catches your eye. I mean, there's the first time you talk to coaches. The more you know coaches, the more they tell you they got a good one, and they had 3 good ones before, and they've had NFL players before. When they speak with authority, and that's where it starts. You get anybody can get on the internet and watch a highlight video.
Right.
You got to understand it is a highlight video. It's his very best plays, and so. But that's the next step. Then my favorite way after that is get them into your summer camps, and we've had that. The COVID kind of knocked that out last year, and it may knock it out this year. But get them in camp. where you can watch their quickness. We can watch them drill work for 30 minutes or 2 hours a day. Nothing beats just being with a guy in those ways of doing it. And that's your third step. But I think that those three all go together. Recruiting hasn't changed much. I was told much. You don't recruit with your ears, you recruit with your eyes.
Yes.
Because you read newspaper, you listen to internet, there's this 5-star, that 5-star. You know as well as I do, some guys are 5 stars that really aren't really. They just did the right program. They catch a lot of passes, or they did something, or they're at a school that never wins, and nobody knows about them. So I think you have to recruit with your eyes, not your ears. And you do that through the best way is on video, and then get them into your summer camp, or have a guy there that you trust his eyes as much as yours. There's so many high school coaches in Louisiana. They know what they look like. They know what they act like, and they know what they are when you're talking about a 5-star. And when you can call coaches like that have been through all that, and they say, hey, I don't care what you think. Come get this guy. This guy can win for you. There are high school coaches in Louisiana. That's all they got to say.
Final question, Coach, and this is a Louisiana question about food.
All right.
Have you had a chance to eat any Cajun food yet?
Oh, Jiminy Christmas. I'm 64 years old right now, and I got to watch what I eat, but I've had gumbo and jambalaya, and the food's great. And I was assuming that the further you get away from New Orleans and down there, maybe you get back to just Southern food. It's still good. The Cajun food, the good food in Louisiana, they've got 3 or 4 restaurants here. Now, I'll tell you this, in Akron, it's all Italian restaurants. Every restaurant that's any good is from a family that's owned a restaurant, that their family owned the restaurant, because there's so much Italian food up there. But, boy, the good Cajun fish, the redfish and the catfish, it's unbelievable here. I would say, I'm not sure if it's waterfront restaurant here right next to our campus can't be.
There you go. Give them that plug, Coach. Get them people
there you go.
There. And look, the Italian coach, that's my favorite, man. Chicken parmesan and stuff like that.
There you go.
Any final thoughts to any ULM alumni that are listening about getting a job in Monroe at ULM? Any final thoughts?
Jump on board. We got to be all in. Don't be a part of the problem. Be a part of the solution. You can't wait for us to win to get excited. Buy season tickets. It's got to mean something when you play at home. It's got to mean something when you put 31,000 people in that stadium, and they help you win. And we can't do it without everybody involved. I'm saying alumni, former lettermen, the community, the students, the faculty, the administration. We got to be all in if we want to change the culture and change the winning right here at Louisiana Monroe.
And and hopefully COVID could be lifted to where you can have 40,000 in the parking lot as well, Coach.
I got a feeling there'll be some kind of magical cure or something a little bit closer to that as we get close to the season. I got a feeling we're going to get closer to running things like we used to.
Well, Coach, I look forward to helping you. Off the record, we'll talk and help you what we can with these players in the state of Louisiana. And good luck to you, man. Again, I'm excited that you're in Monroe. I really am. I'm really a big fan of what you did in your career at all the schools you've been to and your family. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of our show this morning, too, by the way.
Thank you very much. Look forward to it. Just get me back again.
All right. That was Terry Bowden, Coach. We'll talk to you soon. Appreciate you. And we're going to continue on a little bit. When we come back, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more. You listen to the Sports Scouting Report with Lee Brecheen.
Parents, are you looking for advice on getting your high school athlete recruited by the right college? Lee Brecheen is your answer. Lee has been doing it for over 30 years. He knows the ropes, and more importantly, he knows the people. Lee offers turnkey service from evaluation, creating highlight tapes in the correct format, and complete guidelines for effective communication with the schools. No matter the sport, girl or boy, no matter what grade your child is in, let Lee Brecheen help match your child to the right college fit. Go to our website, lafootballmagazine.com, and get connected today.
Welcome back. Glad that I hope you enjoyed the interview with Coach Terry Bowden. What a great coach. Really, what a great interview. I mean, if you didn't get excited, and you don't even have to be a ULM fan, I'm excited, man. The guy's excited to be in Monroe, and I think he's going to do some wonderful things. Coach Bowden, Terry is a great coach. I mean, look at what he did at Auburn. I mean, look at the records he had at Auburn, man. He had so many winning seasons. as a coach at Auburn. He had an 11-0 undefeated season. He had a couple of 10-win seasons. He really only had one bad year in Auburn, and in 1993 he went 11-0, 94 9-1-1, 8-4, 8-4, 10-3 in 97. North Alabama went 11-2. They were first in the NCAA Division II quarterfinals. When he was a coach at Samford, he went 9-3 in 1992. In 87, went 9-1 at Samford. Was at Salem University, went 8-3, 8-3. But in Akron, it was a tough go, but he had an 8-5 year at Akron. But he was there for several years at Akron, and then he was at Clemson last year as an intern, working with the staff over there at Clemson University. But I think there's a lot of enthusiasm with the program, and I think they're going to do a great job there. Terry Bowden and his staff, Coach West, all the coaches, Coach Rodriguez. When we come back, we're going to talk more. I've got some tidbits for Louisiana. When we come back, you're listening to the Sports Scouting Report with Lee Brecheen. So, hey, guys, just wanted to take a minute to tell you about Harvey Autos. If you need a new or used car, there's 3 great dealerships right here worth checking out. John Harvey Toyota, Harvey Subaru, and Lexus of Shreveport, Bossier City. Low prices, honest people. Tell them Lee sent you. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Scouting Report with Lee Brecheen. This segment's about tidbits for Louisiana, just great things people might want to know before we end the show. Wanted to mention a big offensive lineman from St. Thomas More, Louisiana. They won the state championship this year. And did a great job. Coach Hightower won another state championship. They have a senior, class of 221 kid by the name of Joshua Bilodeau, 6'1", 290-pound offensive guard. I call him a mauler. Man, he's tough. He's strong. He loves to finish, and he'll put you on your back. He'll take care of you. He'll maul you, and it's a great word for scouting as just a guy that's just physically mean and strong that'll take you to the ground. But Joshua Bilodeau has been offered by several prep schools in the country. One is Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts. And by the way, Bill Belichick went to Phillips Academy. I worked there. I built tennis courts there in 1991. Also, I want to mention Joshua Bilodeau. There's a good chance he might get a preferred walk-on to LSU and some other schools in Louisiana right now. Another kid that actually is going to be walking on, I think he's going to accept it pretty soon for ULM of Monroe, is tight end Joseph Brown from Notre Dame of Crowley. Joseph is 6'3", 242 pounds, and runs about a 4.8 40. Great kid. Was at Warren, Arkansas High School 2 years ago and transferred to Notre Dame High School in Louisiana. His dad played for Louis Cook back in the day. That was the connection there when he was in Crowley. Another scoop to bring to everybody's attention is William Campbell, the top recruit possibly in the state of Louisiana. I think he's either number 1 or number 2. The number 1 or 2 would be there's a kid at St. James that's going to maybe fight Will Campbell for being the player of the year for 2022 class. Will Campbell's a 6'6", 300-pound offensive tackle from Neville. He's the best tackle I've seen since Andrew Whitworth came out of West Monroe. He's actually more developed. He's way ahead of Andrew Whitworth when Andrew was in high school. Andrew only weighed about 270. This kid is 300 and has the best feet and hand coordination I've seen on an O-lineman since Andrew Whitworth. That's been over 20-something years ago. But Will Campbell's supposed to announce his decision pretty soon. I'm predicting it's LSU. I had a chance to talk to many people that are friends to the family. A lot of them are coaches. I talked to a couple of college coaches, and they think Will Campbell will be committing to LSU pretty soon, the top offensive tackle in the country. And if there's a better one, I'd like to see one. I'd like to see if there is a better one. He's phenomenal. Will Campbell checks all those boxes and then some. And also, speaking of LSU connections, I was on the phone yesterday with Oklahoma State University. We're going to get Tim Rattay hopefully on in the next week or two, the offensive coordinator for Okie State, as they call them there in Oklahoma. Tim Rattay, if you remember, was the former Louisiana Tech quarterback, was a junior college transfer from Utah, and lit up Nebraska a few years ago with a receiver by the name of Troy Edwards, that played for the Steelers. And also on that staff at Oklahoma State, can you believe that Gary Gibbs is an analyst, the former Oklahoma head coach and former LSU assistant? Gary Gibbs is an analyst at Oklahoma State. They call it Okie State in Oklahoma. I hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you on Monday. We've got great guests coming up. We might even also have Sean Smith, former D-tackle for the Chicago Bears and Bogalusa High School, and former Grambling football star Sean Smith, who played in his days at 6'7", 300 pounds, played in the NFL for actually a little over 3 years, played in that famous Fog Bowl game that nobody could see on TV that I actually tried to watch. But again, hopefully we're going to have a great show next week, Monday and Wednesday, and Friday. But I hope you enjoyed Coach Terry Bowden today. We will see you on Monday. Everybody have a great weekend in Louisiana, all over the country. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Scouting Report podcast with Lee Brecheen.